Have you ever heard the term drama triangle? Sometimes it's referred to as the Bermuda Triangle. Now, let me qualify one thing first of all. It is not about women and drama. Okay, this is a concept that I was actually taught years ago and was incredibly helpful for me both at home and at work. So, I want to share with you what the drama triangle is. The drama triangle actually consists of three different types of personalities. So, first of all, draw a triangle. And at the very top, if you can just put the letter V, which stands for victim, you can write the word victim. So, what is a victim? A victim is a person who feels that they don't really have a lot of responsibility around their choices. In fact, what they're always doing is blaming other people. So, what would a victim sound like at home? Let's say you have a child or a teenager. What might they sound like? It might sound something like this. Well, I didn't know I was supposed to do that, Mom. You never told me that. Or the reason I got in a fight at school, well, it was the other kid's fault. Or the reason I got a bad grade, the teacher's terrible. She never explains anything well. At work, what does a victim sound like? It sounds like this. I didn't know about that. I never got that email. You didn't tell me we were doing this. Well, my boss never qualifies or explains things well. If it wasn't for Donna, I'd be way more engaged. So, what is a victim? They're always blaming other people. But for a victim to exist, you have to have two supporting roles. So, down at the bottom, if you could just write the letter P, P standing for persecutor. Now, that sounds like a really mean person, and it's not. It's not meant to be. But what a persecutor does is they just have harsher language. They may say things like, what are you thinking? And their tone of voice is like that. Or, who would do something like that? Or what's wrong with you? And what they really think is they think they're motivating the victim. And at times they might be. But other times it might be somewhat hurting the confidence of the victim. So there's one final rule, and if you could just write that down at the bottom, it's R, which stands for rescuer. And what's the job of the rescuer? You know exactly what their job is. It's to rescue who? The victim. And what they're always doing is they're running after the victim, trying to help them, and not allowing the victim to take over their own responsibilities. So what might they sound like? Could sound something like this. It's okay. It's really not that big of a deal. Let me work through it. I'll talk to her. Don't fret over it. We'll get through this together. It's not really your fault. It's not that big of a deal. And so what happens is the victim can continue to be the victim, because what they're going to do is they're going to constantly run to the rescuer. And when the persecutor says something to the victim's going to run to the rescuer. Now, we can probably identify with all of these roles. We've all been a victim. We've all blamed somebody for something that really was our responsibility. But I want to focus in on the persecutor and the rescuer. I want you to think about, what role do you identify with more? Now, again, you've probably done both of them. At times you've persecuted, at times you've rescued, but you probably can identify with one a little bit more than the other. And what that is going to do when we continue to stay in that role, we are going to continue that crazy cycle. The victim's going to run to the rescuer. The rescuer is going to run back to the victim. The persecutor is going to persecute the victim. And then all of a sudden now the victim and the persecutor are going back and forth. It's just one big hot mess. But in order to break that cycle, when you identify with the persecutor or the rescuer, you got two choices. One, you can keep doing what you're doing, and the cycle will continue. Or two, you can break away from being the rescuer or the persecutor. And let me tell you one thing, that is incredibly tough to do, because the rescuer or the persecutor is kind of in their DNA. It's kind of who they are. And so to change those roles, you've got to have some great self awareness. You've got to see that this isn't working, and you got to pull out of that role. When you're rescuing, you got to stop. You've got to allow the victim to take responsibility for their decisions, even if they're bad. And if you're persecuting, we've got to learn to change the language so it's not so harsh. So I hope this concept helped you. As I said years ago, it was taught to me, and it's been incredibly helpful because I do identify with the drama triangle quite a bit, both in both my personal life and my professional life. So have a good week, and we will see you next week.